Good morning, everyone, and namaste. Thank you so much for joining me today. And we're going to be doing a book share. So I recently read Real Life by Sharon Salzberg. Here it is, the book. I got it in hard copy. And I found it to be just a really great book that summarizes how to go from a sort of contractive state into expansion, into a little more freedom, a little more openness, being able to soften the heart a little more. And what I love about this book is that Sharon does it very efficiently in less than 200 pages. As you can see, the book is not very thick. It's less than 200 pages. And if we're not counting appendix, I believe it's only about 170 pages, 171 pages. And it's just a great book with a lot of mindfulness resources embedded within. So I just highly recommend this book to anyone who is feeling a little tight and constricted and who may be looking for a little support at this time. And so before I dive in, I just want to say that Sharon has a 28-day program, meditation program online that is on a sliding scale from free to $10, $20, goes on to $100, however much that you can contribute. Go right ahead. And if you need the scholarship, you can get the program, sign up for the program for free. It's called the Real Happiness Meditation Challenge. You can find the link right on her website, and registration closes soon. I'll try to upload this before the 31st so people can get to it and sign up for the challenge if you're interested. I think it's based on one of her books that was from maybe 2021, 22. I think it was based on Real Happiness or something like that, like a separate book. So I haven't read that one. That's why I look forward to joining her meditation challenge. So here we go. Again, this is a book summary for Real Life. And it is it's a loose summary. Everything that you'll see coming up on the slides are really heavily paraphrased by me. But all the ideas are all based on Sharon's book. And you'll see that if you actually read the book, you'll see that I sort of sometimes follow along her phrasing, but then paraphrase a part of it. And I haven't been really academic about it, meaning note down where have I paraphrased just for the ease of presentation. So just remember that I am heavily paraphrasing everything, but hopefully I bring across the point that this is a great book to refer to when you need that sort of little inspiration, a little spark just to find light again in some sort of personal darkness. So again, it's about giving you guys some key points, ideas, takeaways that hopefully, inspire you. So let's get to it. So her book is separated into 9 chapters. Not outrageous, right? Just 9 chapters. there is some construction noise outside right now. I hope you guys don't hear it. Hopefully the technology is good enough that it is uh, sort of sifting out the noises, the background noises. So the contents are minimal, as you can see. I know it's my shot is minimized, but you can see it's just one little page of table of contents. So it's very easy to navigate, and we'll just go chapter by chapter. All right. So chapter 1, from constriction to expansion. So first we want to define a little bit for the purpose of the book. What are we talking about when we say constriction versus expansion? So constriction or contraction is the feeling of being lost in fear and harshly unforgiving of ourselves and feeling trapped. And we all have those times of feeling trapped, where we feel like we are projecting limited options and that we're not able to exert a lot of creativity into the situation, and feeling disconnected from possibilities and not able to have a clarity of our visions and what's really possible for us. And contraction isn't bad or wrong. We all go through, contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion. It's just that when it's prolonged and when it's chronic, we begin to have a sort of blinders on, and we only see this tunnel vision. And my own experience is that it just gets narrower and narrower and smaller until we can't see the peripheral anymore. And we stop hearing ideas. We stop being able to listen to other people. There's auditory exclusion, distorted perception, and narrow interest in different things, in trying new things. And this inability to see joy right in front of us. There's life as a mix of joy and pain and bitterness, all the flavors of the rainbow. And when we're in that state of contraction, prolonged contraction, we're not able to not only experience the pain, but also see that there is joy, there is happiness available amid the pain. So there's a fading perception of options, possibility, aliveness, and there's a sense of suffering, escalated suffering, multiplying suffering upon pain. So what we're working to evolve is an inner environment where we can surround that state of constriction, feeling a certain sense of spaciousness, openness around that sense of constriction, so that we could feel that flow of life again, so that we can feel an ease of heart and kindness within, even when we are experiencing pain. So again, contraction isn't just sort of a momentary identification or detachment from a sense of spaciousness, openness, and joy. What we're talking about is something that feels prolonged, that feels chronic, that feels like we are not in balance in terms of the ratio of contraction and expansion that we are experiencing in life. Okay. So now expansion, what are we talking about when we talk about this space, this feeling of expansiveness? So it's as if we're sitting in a small dark room, accustomed to it in the state of contraction, that we don't realize we're confined. And then when the door swings open and when we see light, we're able to move and we're able to see possibilities finally. And this expansiveness, that sense of opening to possibilities, isn't just about being spaced out. It's not about zoning out. It's not about getting high. It's not about being disconnected from pain and the negative emotions. It's actually energized, it's confident, it's creative, it's being connected to love, even in challenging situations. So there are balances to life. We're always flowing between rest and action, passion and letting go. There's ebb and flow to life. There's, expansion and there's contraction. And all of that can take place in sort of a larger awareness where we're able to encapsulate these experiences in the overall feeling zone, feeling tone of love, of kindness. We're able to experience these undulations, again, these flows of stop and go, rest and action, and openness and spaciousness. So expansiveness invites experimentation and imagination. And when we're in that expansive state, when we're aware of that expanded openness, consciousness, awareness, we're more willing to pour ourselves fully into life's pursuits. So we're able to experience fear, but also know that there's so much more love that's surrounding the fear, that it is okay to go through fear and to actually experience life and to explore, really, to be able to explore without fear. That's one of my personal definitions for that expansive state, is just being able to see fear and still move forward in the spaciousness of love. And then no journey to freedom is exclusively linear. And I love that Sharon pointed this out, because it reminds us that for all of us, sometimes the journey of life or whatever that you're working on can feel like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Sometimes it's even 3 steps forward and 5 steps back. So, we're not alone. It's just how life is. And Sharon imagines the path to liberation to be like a double helix with strands that wrap around each other and with reference points along the way. It's circular without notions of success or failure. And to me, I see it as a circular cycle where for me, the reference point is astrology, right? So it's like experiencing your chart over and over again, but sort of with increasing consciousness, with increasing frequency. And so while we may be going through similar themes in our lives, we are actually going up in octaves. So in that way, there's no such thing as success or failure, but only sort of an ascension of the frequency and the possibility of the experience, shall we say. I know I'm not really making this too clear, but you can just imagine that we're cycling up in life's experiences, and it may be circular, but there's a sense of ascending in our level and our frequency of experience. And it's like going out into the wild to catch a bird. It's fine that the person actually doesn't catch the bird. It's about going out, wandering through the forest as the seeker, experiencing, exploring. So that's more in line with at least my own experience of life. And another way to look at it in a Buddha sense, Buddha gives us the Eightfold Path as the way to freedom. And I don't actually remember them exactly, but I will just read them out for quick reference. So the Eightfold Path are right view or understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So Sylvia Boorstein, another really awesome and well-known mindfulness teacher, Vipassana insight meditation teacher, calls this the Eightfold Dot, as in the path really isn't linear. You don't just finish one path and say, okay, I'm done with right intention, check, and I'll never have to come back to right intention anymore. Or that, I've practiced intensively, let's say, what's a good one to use? Let's say I've practiced right effort, or let's say right livelihood. Intensely, I found something that I love and I practiced it, and check, I'm done. I never have to change. I never have to transform. No, it's actually a zigzag. We work on this. It's the Eightfold Dot. We work on this dot a little bit, and then we zigzag to another dot. And then maybe we have to come back and revisit through the practice cycles and then gain deeper insights each time. So, the path really isn't linear. And then chapter 2, when do we feel the smallest? So there are 3 hindrances to freedom. And this is how Sharon categorized it. It's first hindrance, craving and grasping. Second is aversion. And third is delusion. And I'll leave it up to you to read through the bullet points, but we'll go through each one of these 3 a little bit just to get an idea flowing of what could be the hindrances to freedom in our daily lives. So first, craving and grasping. And, with craving, with craving, grasping, aversion, it's this feeling of too little, so I have to grasp for more, and too much, I have to avoid, I have to resist, I have to avert. And then delusion is the fire is burning outside and I'm not even going to look at it. So first of all, we look at there's not enough and I have to get more and get more. So craving moves us to obsess about what we don't have and overlook what we do have. And this is my own commentary that there are a lot of examples in the fashion and cosmetic industry, in the beauty industry, where that's what they sell on, is that there's never enough and that we are never enough. So it leaves us grasping for products. And grasping keeps us from finding, actually having happiness. So there's a sense of, it must be exactly this, or I won't be happy, except that, as we learn, it's always a moving target. Once I have this, let's use beauty industry, once I have this product, I will be happy. But lo and behold, a new product comes out with a new set of promises, and I have to do that again. And I have to get this product and go through that cycle again. So it's the pleasure pain cycle. It binds us to fixation and frustration. And then there's a certain sense of addiction. And this quote is from Gabor Mate from his book In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. So many of us resemble the drug addiction and our ineffectual efforts to fill in the spiritual black hole, the void at the center where we have lost touch with our soul, our spirit. And this is, sorry, I actually have to pause for a second. Sorry, guys, the alarm actually came on. I'm just going to turn it off. This is real, right? So Gabor Mate, addiction is just us fixated on something where we believe that the having of it will allow us to fill that void, but it actually never does. And that's when we know that we've lost touch with our souls, our spirit, and the deeper truth of who we are and what we are. And so Sharon offers a practice called Surf the Urge. So just allow yourself to stay with the experience of urgency and realize that you can tolerate it. So explore the potential of a deeper need that's masked by the craving. And you can read the detailed exercise in the book. I forgot which page. It's between page 36 and page 40. Again, it's in the hard copy version, but it's there. So allow yourself to, again, just stay with that experience of craving and grasping, and gradually feel the different tones, ask questions, be curious about what this urgency is. And again, the question that I always like to ask myself when I feel urge, when I feel anxiety, when I feel tension is, what needs have I neglected in myself? What is it that I'm needing right now that I'm overlooking? Because usually with these urges, chances are behind these urges, there's unfulfilled needs. So that's what I like to ask myself. Okay, so that's craving and grasping. And then aversion. It's the too much, I have to push things away. So we can be embarrassed by difficult and challenging situations and become aversive, impatient, and unkind towards ourselves and others. Externally, we express anger, and internally, we freeze in fear. So it's just such an easy thing to understand aversion. It's just, when meeting difficult situations, we just we don't want to hear about it, or we become impatient. We just want to get out of it, because chances are we're being hard on ourselves and it's not comfortable. So, we just want to push it away. And in terms of how we treat others, we can become angry, or we can become frozen and we don't know how to react. And so the skillful approach is not to be afraid of emotions, but to learn how to cultivate some space. Um, just difficult emotions do arise all the time. And the point that Sharon is making is that we can give ourselves permission to feel things, to view our mind states like weather, to view our mind states like, clouds in the sky or just weather. Sometimes there's rainbows, sometimes there's the sun, and sometimes it's a blizzard. But to cultivate that sense of spaciousness, awareness around it, where I am not the clouds, I am not the rain, I'm not the blizzard, I'm not identified with any of it, but I am the space and the awareness that's able to experience the clouds, the rain, the severe weather, or the wonderful weather. So giving ourselves permission to feel things with the added spaciousness. And we want to talk about guilt and shame in the Western psychology language. Guilt is I did something wrong, or there's something wrong with me. Or sorry, I'm going to reverse that. So shame is I did some restart. Guilt is I did something wrong, meaning that it's an action that, uh, or a behavior that led to some kind of negative experience or negativity. But shame becomes that I am a bad person for doing it. And we want to just have a separation of that, where we can have remorse for something that we did wrong and seek to correct it. But we don't want to push it towards shame, where I become a bad person, because that brings us to a sense of aversion. We're less likely to face the challenging situation in openness and creativity if we end up blaming ourselves, or get trapped in self-hate, because then our automatic defensive mechanism would be to fight, flight, or freeze under the situation. So we can recognize that we did something wrong, that our action was not skillful, was not optimal, but never point the finger back at ourselves. And when we do, sometimes it's, we have such deep-seated habits of pointing fingers back at ourselves and becoming self-victimizing. When that happens, my experience is to just see it, uh, embrace it in loving kindness and compassion, and just allow that energy to arise and then release it. So, meaning don't shame the shame that's coming up. And shame blocks learning, keeps us from being honest. Interconnectedness and belonging can combat shame. So if we're able to name shame, then shame gets transmuted, and shame is able to be, I would say, just internally resolved. So I just want to mention that, yes, we want to name shame and we want to be able to process it, to have a sounding board and naming that shame and talking about it. But again, make sure that you are talking to somebody who is able to hold that loving space for you, who is experienced in holding space, who deserves your trust, who has shown that it's a two-way street. Do not just throw out your shame to somebody who does not have the capacity to hold it. And chances are, if the other person has never been able to process their own shame, they would not be able to hold space for your shame. So just keep that in the back of your head, as you try to find some camaraderie in processing whatever negative emotions that may be coming up. Okay. So delusion. Delusion happens when we can't mindfully accept challenging experiences or ambiguity. We want to space out or become numb to self-protect. And what I've learned so far is that sometimes we do need that diluted state to separate us from something that is just so traumatic, that we're not able to process right away. So, sometimes we just, after a huge, let's say a very traumatic breakup, we kind of need to dilute ourselves a little bit, as in, let's just go to the movies, forget about it, or let me just binge some TV and, eat 2 pints of Ben and Jerry's. And I just need to not feel it for a while and be in denial for a while. And I think that's fine, as long as it's done with the background awareness of, okay, this is what I'm doing, but eventually I'm going to seek help to process it bit by bit. Because sometimes the trauma can be so huge that we do need professional help to help us process the experience in a skillful way so that it doesn't backfire, so that we don't get caught up with our own defensive mechanisms, so we don't blow up internally or externally. So as long as done consciously, being in denial for a little bit, I think can be helpful before we're ready to say, okay, I'm going to seek out help. And also, delusion conceals true nature of things, manifests as darkness, and we end up relying on someone else's vision of what is true, losing confidence in our own perception of truths, right? Prolonged delusion can lead to just overall inability to get a clear sense of our own vision. We lost touch with what is true for us, what is light for us, what is our purpose in life, and we're not able to just even see that next step. And we can also cling to rigid stories, views, assumptions, judgments, perceptions, in hopes of providing a way out of the challenges, like tightly grasping onto something during a severe storm. So if we're talking about, let's say, drug abuse, if sort of during a really harsh time, we got addicted to substance, then we might end up tightly grasping onto that even after the storm. And sometimes we grasp, if it's not substance, sometimes we grasp onto a story that we tell ourselves. And then we're not able to rise beyond that story. So chances are some sort of internal defensive mechanism would have been triggered at that point, where it would feel really insecure. It would feel like one's survival would be challenged if we let go of that story. So that's delusion. All right, in chapter 3, being with difficult feelings. So practice looking at difficult feelings. We move from constriction to expansion, not by demanding that a painful emotion just simply disappear, or by straining to change its nature, but by surrounding it with spaciousness. Again, it's about allowing ourselves to sit back and relax into, I think what Gary Zukov calls the seat of consciousness. It's just a spaciousness infused with kindness, where in that space, we're able to see the painful experiences, as well as the hopes, the potentialities, the possibilities that could come out of these painful experiences. And so practice looking directly at different feelings. Again, this sort of a repeat, and practice having equanimity or peace of mind toward them. And this is Sharon Salzberg's personal experience when she first began to meditate, where she was able to identify the pieces of the difficult feelings that she was feeling. So through meditation, she was able to parse out shame, where she wasn't feeling worthy of thinking that she could feel better. And then self-judgment. She should have been able to stop this pattern long ago, or fear. She didn't care what it took. She had to avoid this. Over-identification. This is who she fundamentally was. It would never change. Isolation. She was the only one feeling this. No one could ever understand her. So these are the separate qualities of her feelings that she was able to parse out. And it's important to be able to look at these feelings instead of just lumping them together. As we lump them together, it's easier to just want to throw the lump into the closet. But when we start to organize these feelings, we're able to see their value and see exactly where they belong in our lives and how they can even assist our lives sometimes. Okay. And then encountering difficult feelings, we work to recognize them, to forgive ourselves for what we're feeling, to see more deeply into the heart of the feelings, and to not identify with them fundamentally. And I would say the point is to not identify with the feelings. So again, it's repeating what we talked about in terms of reflecting on our feelings, like reflecting on weather. It's weather. And we're bringing a sense of consciousness. We're bringing a sense of perspective, a broader perspective, or higher perspective, to look at the weather, no matter what is happening, with more ease. And then approach the feelings in this moment instead of consolidating our emotional experience into one chunk. we're projecting that we're going to feel for the next 2 or 10 years and try to deal with them all right now. So again, this is sort of like not clumping things all together to make sure that, oh, to deal with, let's say we experience this huge trauma. It's like, oh, I just want to just feel everything right now, get it over with. I don't ever want to deal with this trauma ever again. So I'm just going to dedicate this entire month to dealing with trauma, and that is it. No, we deal with it as they come up. We embrace them, embrace what's coming up about this trauma in this moment, and we process that. And then maybe 2 years later, a different piece of this trauma comes up, and we embrace and we process those emotions at that time. So we don't try to project what should come up around this challenging issue. We just allow the challenge to arise and surface, and we deal with the emotions that we're ready to deal with right now. So basically, one moment at a time. Okay, and Sharon offers the handshake practice, or actually, it's one of the Rinpoches that she learned from. Sorry, I can't pronounce his name. But in his book, Open Heart and Open Mind, he offers the beautiful monsters exercise. So it's to soften and allow what's happening within our body, what's happening within us. So there's no need to suppress or push down what's arising. Look for special things. Or no need to look for special things, no need to impress anyone. Just be kind to the phenomenon that's happening within you, either physically, emotionally, internally, externally. Every feeling is priceless. So bring a sense of non-judgment to whatever that is arising and stay grounded. Don't indulge whatever that comes up or become swept away. So not to become identified with what is coming up, and be with yourself. Don't expect change, transformation of what's there. So what this means is we're not doing this exercise to purge the bad or to be able to transform ourselves to something better or to better ourselves. No, we're doing this just to be with what's within us. So I would add that it's not only being with our beautiful monsters inside, it could be angels. We could find the softness within us. We could meet with the sweetness within us. They're all valid. We could meet with the vulnerable within us, or we can meet with the heroic, the strong within us. So whatever that comes up, we don't have to transform it, change it. We just be with what is there. And number 4, to listen and welcome. Sorry for the spelling. So instead of ignoring or dismissing, we give the gift of our attention to listen to our body without judgment, to be with the body without judgment. And I find this really useful when the body itself is actually in pain, where we're feeling into, for instance, I get joint sensitivity sometimes. And the practice for me is to not resist it. It's to actually feel into it, allow it to be there, and to really shake hands with it, to get intimate with it without needing it to change. That's really hard, is doing this practice to get close to the pain, to wrap our arms around the pain, to love the pain, to welcome and listen to the pain without wishing the pain to go away, without wishing to change or transform the pain. This is something that I'm still working on. It's still hard for me, where it's easier for me to want to avert the pain and to want to transform it into something that's 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 comfortable, that's harmonious, or even to transform the lower feeling tones into excitement and ecstasy. I still find myself wanting excitement and ecstasy and wanting to avert the pain. But in this practice, we are welcoming the pain with open arms, and even welcoming not only the pain, but the parts of us that are actually feeling pretty good with open arms, with consciousness, with conscious awareness. So Sharon talks about the window of tolerance, and this is this concept is developed by Dr. Dan Siegel. And as I was researching the window of tolerance, Sharon has a great description in her book already, but for me, I'm more of a visual person. So as I was researching into it, I found this amazing graphic that was done by this blogger. His name is Anthony. He didn't mention his last name, but his blog is called Mind My Peelings. So this is his graphics. I'm just using it because it is so, so good. So window of tolerance is the optimal zone where we can deal with stress from everyday life. So it's this zone right there in the middle where it's spacious, we're able to navigate, we're able to shift ourselves very easily left and right and just flow with the currents without feeling overwhelmed, without feeling either hyperarousal, which is the freeze response, or feeling hyperarousal, which is excessive activations going into fight and flight. So you can read the descriptions more in detail, but it's to be able to observe what our window of tolerance is in daily situations. What is our basal point? What is our foundational base point, where it is our typical range for that window of tolerance, and hopefully be able to practice to widen that margin, to widen that window of tolerance, so we don't go into defensive mechanisms and reactivity with the challenges of life. So a couple more graphics, also from Mind My Peelings. So stress can cause us to shrink our window of tolerance. And of course, meditation or doing things that soothe us, that allow us to feel cared for, that fulfill our needs, our foundational needs, can expand our window of tolerance. And again, another great graphic from My Peelings, where with increasing engagement and increasing of repellence or resistance toward the situation, you get the fight response. And then with increasing repellence and disengagement, you get the flight response. You want to just stay away from the situation. And then going counterclockwise, if you're in a disengaged mode, but still sort of fairly open and not knowing, to a certain point of not knowing what to do, it's the freeze, it's the comply, surrender, shut down mode. And then if you're able to be open, what Anthony terms attract for me is sort of an openness to the situation. When there's an openness to the situation and you're willing to engage, that means you're able to respond. You're able to face challenges and respond from calmness, from connectedness. So again, I feel like this is a great graphic to start to be aware of where we are in the situation in question, or where we typically are in our daily lives. Do we tend to be in the fly zone when we meet difficult situations? Or are we in the fly zone, or a combination of the three? Or are we mostly able to face the situation in equanimity? So the way to widen the river, there are a couple of exercises that we can do. Again, this is offered by Sharon, and first offered by another author, but Sharon put it in the book, and I really like this one. It's called the Happy Day Formula. So formulate what makes a happy day for you. So for Dr. Salby, I think she's a doctor. For her, it's drink lots of water, eat healthy food, make an appointment with your heart, be in the presence of nature, do something in the arts, connect with family and friends, and live your purpose. Can be all of the above. So start to notice, think back to a day that felt really fulfilling, a day that felt flowing, a day where you were in the being, what should I call the zone? The equanimity zone, where you're able to face challenges with calmness, with spaciousness, even with a little bit of excitement and maybe a lot of creativity. So think back to those times and then list out, are there little vitamins that I took, the vitamins of life that I took that day that allowed me to feel extra perky? I don't know. So my example is when I have a good day, when I have a day where I've really noticed that I fulfilled my needs, my physical needs, my personal needs, are the times when, I have quiet time for meditation, and I have time to self-reflect, and that I've learned something new, and I was in the presence of nature, and that for that day, I contributed to the world in some ways. And also I've received from the world in some ways. So a good day would be feeling a sense of divine circulation that happens. And that's what makes me happy. And so, for instance, doing a presentation like this, being able to contribute to the world makes my day. Okay, another toolkit is RAIN, and it's a technique coined by Michelle McDonald. I think she's a mindfulness teacher, but absolutely made popular by Tara Brach, well-known mindfulness teacher. So if you know this already, feel free to skip ahead, but just to review, R is for recognize. Talked about this over and over again. It just shows you how important this is in terms of going from contraction to freedom, is to recognize, notice the emotions instead of becoming, not only being the emotion, becoming the emotions, being identified with the emotion. Shift to feeling the emotion. So introduce spaciousness around it. And then A for allow. Look for additional emotions. So widen the conscious awareness for the emotions that are coming up, and allow for additional emotions to surface. Sharon mentioned to see if we can let them go. And from my experiences, For the ones that want to just arise and then recedes, we just observe it. And for the ones that, want to stay in our conscious awareness, seemingly for, a longer stretch of time, I typically just allow that too. Let's say for a set amount of time, for the next 10 minutes, I'm just going to let whatever that wants to arise and stay there, stay. And if the emotion is on a less intense, indelible side, then if it wants to recede, we just let it recede. And then eyes for investigate, bring curiosity and exploration to the experience. So what am I experiencing in my body, and what mental movies are unfolding? What pictures am I seeing of the past and the future, for example? And for me, I learned this from doing the work with Byron Katie. I also ask, how do I treat myself when I feel this? And how do I treat others when I feel this? How do I treat the world when I feel this? So investigate, and how does my body respond and react when I feel this? And then N is for non-identify. So remind ourselves that feelings are a part of common human experience and that we don't have to feel personal about these feelings. And then N is also for nurture. It's an alternative to N for non-identify. It's to practice unconditional kindness towards yourself. And on the side, I put in the corresponding component of self-compassion as defined by Dr. Kristen Neff. I love her work, just can't thank her work enough for helping me in difficult times. And I'm just starting to find that different mindfulness researchers, different meditation researchers are coming up with different language for different techniques, but they're all pointing to the same thing, or at least very, very similar things. For instance, for recognize, allow, and investigate, Dr. Neff, Kristen Neff, encapsulates that under the umbrella of mindfulness, which is one of the three components for self-compassion. So basically, to practice mindfulness really is to recognize our emotions, allowing the emotions, and to be curious about what this emotion is, curious about our experience. And then non-identify is common humanity. We want to remember that whatever that we're experiencing is a part of the human experience, and we don't have to feel personal about it. And then an alternate and for nurturing is just under Kristen Neff's self-compassion system. It's kindness. Be able to practice unconditional kindness towards us and towards those who are affected by these challenges. So chapter 4, the light within. So it's actually a chapter about just embracing love in order to thrive. So Sharon talks about compassion. It's a face of love that recognizes suffering. So love isn't just lovey-dovey. We want to just bring in affirmations, loving affirmations, though I have to say they do work sometimes. But compassion allows us to have love and still be able to recognize suffering. And sometimes we mistake excessive sacrifice for love, or martyrdom for generosity. So in loving kindness practice, we begin by offering loving kindness for ourselves before others, even as we cultivate compassion for others, there needs to be a part of us that's not abandoning ourselves. So we want to bring a sense of loving kindness to ourselves and to others to a level where we're not abandoning our own needs. Just as simple as that. And to bring a quality of equanimity to love. So I will do what I can for a beloved friend in need, but I'm actually not in control of the universe. And ultimately, this is out of my hands. Ultimately, this is beyond what I can control. So bring equanimity to a difficult situation can sometimes feel a little more detached. But the opportunity here is that we're able to still be in touch with our own needs so that we are not stepping into the realms of over-sacrificing. And that's really important. And then love is practice. It's difficult, but it allows us to thrive when cultivated. So cultivate the, what am I trying to say here? Inner plant of light. Yeah, so I think in the book, Sharon talked about how there was an experiment where researchers gave plants to two separate groups of elders in a nursing home. So for one group, they told the elders that the plants will be taken care of by the caretakers and they're there just for their enjoyment. And for the other group, they told the elders that the plant's survival depended on them, that they would have to be the caretakers to the plant. And so after a while, I forget how long this experiment ran for. So for the elders who took care of the plants, they saw that they thrived, the elders thrived more than the sort of the control group where the plants were just for the elders to enjoy. And the group where they had to take care of the plants lived longer. Something along those lines. So the point being that if we leave love be and we don't cultivate it consciously, we can still enjoy it from time to time. We're still connected to it. No harm done, no problem. But if we cultivate it very consciously, we'll be able to benefit from it much better. We'll be able to thrive more if we're able to cultivate love and compassion. And for me, it really is cultivating compassion. Okay. So being with difficult circumstances. So again, illness, physical pain, and caretaking. Do the body scan, meet the beautiful monsters, as we talked about before. Decide to make your day extraordinary through the power of intention. Life is not perfect, but it can be wonderful. So meet where we are, meet the pain, meet the illness where we are without needing to change it. And see what's good, beautiful, and true, practicing what gives us inspiration, strength, and courage. And acceptance is the energetic opposition of aversion, anger, and fear. And we'll see this term come up over and over again, this key point of acceptance. It's about embracing what is in the now without pushing things away. And that is a practice. It doesn't happen automatically because of all sorts of reasons, how our brain is wired, so on and so forth. It takes conscious practice to be automatically accepting of difficult situations, as in being able to fall back to the seat of awareness, being able to open up to possibilities as the first instinct takes practice. And rhythm of life is a flow of giving and receiving. Can't just give, give, give. We burn out, and we can't just take, take, take. We become selfish, self-absorbed, disconnected. So the more we're aware of the balance of giving and receiving, acting and nourishing, the more resilient we're able to be for the long haul. And this is a quote from Mark Coleman. And again, it's just, I've heavily paraphrased it, but it's about, you know, the give and take. Again, it's that divine circulation. So, counsel for challenging times, and Sharon refers to Dr. Sumit Kumar, who is a clinical psychologist and an author. So Dr. Kumar listed a couple of points for us to remember in challenging times. Number one is be kind to yourself. You can't adequately care for others if you're unable to care for yourself. So this is more on the caretaking side. And then be present. It's natural to want to be somewhere else in challenging times. Be present in the moment, even if it is a bad moment. And be aware of change breathing under stress. This is a huge one for me as well, to notice breathing patterns. We can disrupt this automatic process in order to respond instead of react. So we can use breathing as a way to calm ourselves down under stress. This is something that I'm also continuing to need conscious practice. Guilty, I'm not one to really notice my breath right away and to use breathing to open myself up to possibilities in the moment. But I really look forward to practicing this. And then practice diaphragmatic breathing, belly breathing. So imagine a balloon in the belly, inhale, inflate the balloon in the belly, exhale, deflate the balloon. Again, something I'm needing a lot of practice. And you'll feel like you're not enough. This is where we practice giving ourselves compassion, ask for help. And, this reminds us that we're not alone, because chances are inadequacy comes up for all of us. It's I would say a norm of life, a norm of how our minds are wired, negativity, bias, so on and so forth, where it's natural for us to default to feeling not enough, default to feeling not good enough, not smart enough, not beautiful enough, not rich enough, not skinny enough, not presentable enough, not eloquent enough, blah, 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 blah. It's easy for us to default to that, and you're not alone. So know that this will come up, and it's okay to practice self-compassion and to ask for help. And then I love this quote. Sharon quoted L.R. Nost, I believe it's pronounced Nost, I hope it's pronounced Nost, author, child development researcher, founder of Little Hearts, Gentle Parenting Resources. So she says, life is amazing. And then it's awful. And then it's amazing again. And then in between amazing and awful, it's ordinary and mundane and routine. Breathe in the amazing, hold on through the awful, and relax and exhale during the ordinary. And that's just living heartbreaking, soul healing, amazing, awful, ordinary life. I just could not agree more. It's just she is saying what my heart wants to say to me. Life is amazing and heartbreaking and amazing and so bittersweet and amazing and so sad and amazing and so sour and amazing and so extraordinary and such a privilege and so on and so forth. So I love that we're recognizing life isn't just one dimensional. It's again the full range of the rainbow. Chapter 6, we can feel more expansive every day. So staying connected to awe. I love that Sharon mentioned awe because it's something that I forget, that we can still experience awe no matter what age, no matter who we are, what we've been through, because life itself is just so awe-inspiring. So awe can bring us to a state of stillness, fully present, whole, and complete. So no thoughts ruminating on daily complaints. And the easy example is just standing in front of a magnificent landscape. You know, standing in front of the grandeur, you know, our brain just suddenly becomes empty and we're at a loss for words. It's not even at a loss for words, it's no words necessary and no computation necessary, no computation available even. Our brain can be blown right open when we're facing a grand landscape. So that's a state of awe. It allows us to be in the stillness of the moment. So another quote by UC Berkeley researcher on awe and experiences of awe, people often speak as if they have found their soul. For me, it's in that state of awe, I'm able to feel my spirit, my spirit gets channeled through the most, or gets brought into conscious awareness, not even channeled through, but my spirit gets brought into my conscious awareness more when I'm in that state of awe. And then another quote from Joe Leon, writer, rapper, storyteller. We put so much pressure on ourselves to make something extraordinary out of this existence of ours when, in reality, our breath, the mere presence of our flesh, our feet touching the ground, is as extraordinary as we need it to be, as we need to be. Just remembering that the little things in our lives can be inspirations, can be awe-inspiring. We don't have to go out to Yosemite, Grand Teton, national parks to see the grandeur of some vista, to appreciate the grandeur that is within our daily lives, to appreciate, to cultivate. It takes cultivation cultivate the perspective, a vision of grandeur in every little thing that we do. So enough is a feast, says Shelley Tygilsky. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, mindfulness teacher. And so if we're in touch with our inner strength energy, or if we're in touch with our inner strength, the energy uplift, enough is more than enough. Am I reading that correctly? Yeah, so when we're able to, for me, the way that I would summarize this is if we're able to cultivate that connection with our spirit more mindfully, more consciously, if we're able to be aware of our spirit, then enough is more than enough. Then the ordinary things can be experienced as extraordinary. When we're able to cultivate awareness of spirit and live from spirit, embrace life from spirit. And just, there's another quote that's coming up. You guys are going to love it. I love that quote. It's so awe-inspiring, extraordinary. I'll talk about it then, but really is when we cultivate mindfulness towards awe, or towards, for me, is towards the spirit, it tends to allow the mundane to transcend into the extraordinary. So again, this reminded me again that neuromarketing exploits negativity, bias, and scarcity and not enoughness for their own profit. So I believe in a healthy economy, as in there has to be goods and services exchanged for a healthy economy. There has to be a divine circulation, financial circulation, for the earth to be healthy and happy, for us as human species to be happy, to be healthy. There has to be services and goods exchanged. But when we bring it to an unconscious level, when we bring it to an extreme without mindfulness, then there a lot of negative impact, because we start to push consumers into scarcity thinking. And with that, we go back to the state of the hungry ghost, where things become never enough. And then we become more and more depressed. We become more and more separated from our spirit. And we become more and more tunnel visioned, not being able to see joy, not being able to experience infinite possibilities, not able to expand into creativity, to receive creativity. And with that, becoming disconnected internally. That is my pet peeve. That is my beef with neuromarketing. I have no problem with neuromarketing when it's based on wholeness, when there's a mindfulness behind it, where it serves the common good. But it's just huge issues behind it when we're trying to push and peddle a sense of not enoughness. So just sort of a side note for me. This is not from Sharon Salzberg, just more of a side note, something that I remembered. Okay. So gratitude. Embody gratitude, love, appreciation, helps us breathe better, helps with screen apnea, email apnea, and continuous partial attention. And these terms are coined by Linda Stone, who is a tech thought leader, blogger, and former Microsoft exec. So yeah, I'm noticing my own screen apnea. not only necessary email apnea, but just as that when I'm so engrossed on the screen, when I'm so engrossed on doing computer work, you know, I am holding my breath. I'm not breathing fully. And I'm also noticing that, you know, in the era of Twitter, in the era of forget about YouTube, we're now only talking shorts and TikTok and 10-second clips. We're no longer in concentration. We're no longer in prolonged concentration as a part of the Eightfold Path. We're now in continuous partial attention, continuous fragmented attention. So practicing gratitude, love, appreciation can allow us to bring back the fullness of breath, to bring back a fullness of attention. So what we can do is reflect on the good. This is positive psychology. So we can reflect on what happened today that was good, and to connect to that feeling consciously. Because of negativity bias, we have to connect to the good feelings very, very consciously, and to milk it really. The key is to milk that feeling in order to offset the negativity bias. So we give gratitude, and we can breathe in the gratefulness and breathe out the gratitude, or whatever that you wish to do. For me is breathe in the love, and then breathe out the love, giving out the love as I breathe out. And then another practice is to say yes, and I love this one. This is new to me, and I find it so useful. So instead of saying, I got to see grandma over the holidays, but everyone else was horrible, say, I got to see grandma over the holidays, and everyone was horrible. Both can be true, and using and relieves us of the resistance mode. And what's so amazing, and for me revolutionizing, is that we're not affirming what's not true. As in, I'm not saying, oh, I got to see grandma over the holidays and everyone was great. I'm not trying to fudge the truth. I'm not trying to delude myself that that everyone was somehow just rising to my expectations, where everyone was great. I'm not trying to say that. I'm actually recognizing what wasn't great for me. It's just that when I use and, there's a sense of openness to it, as in I am experiencing both pain and pleasure in the holiday gatherings, but I'm not resisting that pain was also a part of it. Whereas if I use the term but everyone else was horrible, there's a sense of pushing away. So to me, this is just amazing trick, just a little change of word allows me to go from the scarcity mindset, the contraction mindset, into the openness mindset, where I'm recognizing the pain, being okay with it, accepting it, and frankly, moving on, because what I resist will persist. But when I accept it, accept that there was a horrible experience, chances are it's going to transmute. It's just going to pass on like clouds passing the sky. It's going to move on. All right. So self-respect and pride. Sharon uses the term pride, also self-respect, but she does use the term pride in a more positive sense. So I just want to bring that up, and I don't want to go into semantics. Pride sometimes in the spiritual circles can be equated with ego. So I just want to mention that Sharon uses the term pride in a positive, life-affirming sense. Okay, so self-respect, it's a connection to our capacity for developing insight, compassion, growth, and change. To know that the potential is innate. It doesn't have to be duly earned. It just is. Isn't that great? That self-respect is from our capacity to know that we can grow and change. And our capacity to grow and change doesn't have to be earned. It just is. But we can be trained out of believing that we can do it, that it is our birthright, that it is normal, that it is okay. Growth and change is okay. There has to be some practice in remembering that we have this natural capacity to develop insight, compassion, growth, and change. And then what happens when we fall? Let's say the examples that Sharon gave was, for instance, I do this for a living. I don't know who I would be without it. Or I'm a fearful person and I will just always be a fearful person. Or I fail to live up to my ideals and therefore I'm just a failure. So in this sense, in this case, we want to come back to recognize our innate capacity for growth and change and our ability to start over and to release ourselves from identifying with our past identities, what we did for a living, or how I used to respond to fear, or what my ideals were that no longer, or what my ideals were, but I failed at it. To just know that we don't have to identify with those ideas, and to know that we can start over. And that means we're not, a fixed identity, but we're a process. We're processes, dynamic systems that are constantly in flux. And we have the ability to reinvent through disruption and the capacity for reorganization and self-repair. So we're just repeating the same thing. So recognize that change is normal. Recognize that reorganization after disruption, even major life events, are normal. It's just for some reason, society has taught us that change is not normal, that if we were smart enough, rich enough, beautiful enough, we can hedge change. And the reason that we're challenged, the reason that we're going through difficulties, we're going through pain, is because we're not enough. We need to be smarter. We need to learn how the successful people works. We need to know how to get ourselves more clever, smarter, more intelligent in order to stay fixed. For some reason, that's been the subliminal messages of our society. And Sharon is just reminding us that it's not true. Life is process. Life is just transformation after transformation after transformation. Our identities are actually never fixed. Or I would say maybe in the last in the last century, identities can be more fixed. I have to admit that. But in the new century, there is, we're fully recognizing that there is no such thing. So just to sort of summarize, self-respect really is the ability to be connected to our capacity for change and growth. Just that connection, I think, brings self-respect. Okay, and then chapter 7, we are not alone. And I think the whole book is one gigantic reminder that we are not alone. So Sharon talks about loneliness versus solitude. So loneliness can feel like we've been erased. We're stranded in some adjunct world and unacknowledged, disconnected. We can feel lonely even when surrounded by people, family, or intimate partner. And solitude, by contrast, is having ease of heart. That's either we're alone or not. It's just that feeling of connectedness and ease of heart within. And we're all part of a web of life. And Sharon brings up this amazing research. I forgot the researcher's name. They found that for trees, they're connected through mycelia, which is a network of fungal threads. So the mother trees feed the smaller trees in need through the network, and vice versa can happen if the mother tree, which are just taller trees that are higher than the rest of the, let's say, forest, so they get more nutrients, and when they get excess nutrients, they're able to spread the excess to the other trees. And vice versa can happen when if the mother tree is malnourished, the smaller trees can feed the mother tree through the network. And so we want to remember that the human network is always, always there. It's just in my experience when there is a defensive mechanism triggered or survival mechanism triggered, we're in fight, flight, freeze, we tend to recognize help, or we tend to not recognize help. We tend to blind ourselves from available help. And so when that happens, we want to go into self-compassion mode, to really go through the steps of self-compassion to relieve us from the fight, flight, freeze, not to relieve us from emotions, but relieve us from the reactions of fight, flight, freeze, so that we can recognize the emotions and from there move on to open up to help and receive help. And so we are all each other's help, or God with skin on. We're all each other's, if you don't want to say God with skin on, then we're all each other's God's little helpers. So giving and taking is a part of the cycle of life and gives us a sense of purpose. And no shame and guilt and powerlessness can arise when it's beyond our capacity to help. So when we see somebody in need, let's say somebody is just physically unwell, just very simple example, somebody is physically unwell and let's say that person needs help to lift something, for example, and like me, I'm just, maybe it's lifting a crate of water or something like that, I am not able to do it. And sometimes we will fall into shame and guilt and powerlessness when we're not able to help. It's beyond my physical capacity to help. And so just a reminder that help sometimes can mean to ask for somebody else's help in the person's stead. So instead of me actually helping, I can maybe call somebody up who I know has the correct physical strength to help. And also, I can send thoughts of loving kindness to the situation or to the person. For instance, if somebody is really, really sick and they're on the hospital bed, under palliative care, maybe, and it's, I'm not able to help, instead of feeling powerless, I can just do the loving kindness meditation and send love. And actually, in terms of our neurobiology, sending love constitutes action. Sending thoughts, energies of compassion, love, care is enough. And chances are the other person can feel it. And chapter 8, with the light of clarity. So what changes in our lives as clarity dawns? For me, it's sort of what can happen, or what are the experiences that we can start to see and experience as we open up to a sense of spaciousness. So number one, we destigmatize pain. So in our culture, for some reason, pain is labeled as negative. Pain is labeled as the negation of worthiness. That for those who are the right people, the chosen people, the worthy people, they would be free from pain. For some reason, society teaches us that. And that's not true. So we destigmatize pain. Pain is okay. Pain is universal. And then we're kind to ourselves as we journey. So we stop buying into the humiliation model of feeling ashamed, of being frightened, confused, different, or not being able to force something. This is huge. Again, this is about neuromarketing, where we're being confused, we're being infused with these ideas that if we can't afford a certain thing, for instance, if we can't afford this education for our children, or certain product for our children, then we're bad parents. It's along those lines. Neuromarketing just operates along the shame and blame and guilt line. So notice that, so that we can bring a gentleness to ourselves and others. So be kind to ourselves. And that we see how we are conditioned. Unprocessed and unintegrated trauma can activate painful memories or painful emotions and memories. So fear of abandonment, alienation, betrayal, etc. And mindfulness gives us some space so we can see the conditioning and make choices. And a huge reminder, we have the capacity to change. And first is we have to see how we are conditioned. So practicing awareness around our conditions. And there's so many systems out there that allows us to see how we're conditioned. Astrology is one. Astrology is what I practice. It's a great system of seeing karmic conditioning. And there's also, if you don't want to look into astrology, the Enneagram is a great system to see how we are conditioned, to start understanding where we may still have unprocessed trauma, where it's blinding us and pushing us into the realms of the hungry ghost, where nothing is ever enough. Or I think Myers-Briggs, the 16 personality system is also a great way to look at our conditioning. So there are many, many different systems out there that gives us a mirror for us to be able to start seeing and processing our conditioning. And then we see that actions have consequences, and there are consequences to being lost in a chronically contracted state compared to the consequences of being more open and inquiring. So, for example, we can all feel outrage, but outrage can lead to skillful action when we're more aware of our triggers, where we can become, where our defensive mechanisms can come up. We're able to process it a little better and be able to stay with the moment, and then be able to respond to the moment, versus when we're just allowing triggers to come up or our defensive mechanisms to be activated without awareness. Then outrage just leads to rageful and vengeful actions, as just we've seen from too many national tragedies these days. So this is the quote that to me is awesome and revolutionary and just mind-blowing, as I've mentioned before, is this quote by, I can't pronounce his name, I'll try, Hujwiri, or Hujviri, 11th century Persian Sufi. He says, have your heart be where your feet are. So what he means by where your feet are is just this moment in the here and now. So have your heart be in the here and now, and not elsewhere, not in the past, not in the future, but have your heart be in the present. And to me, this is just an amazing thing to remember, to be able to respond from the heart in the moment, instead of responding from past traumas or responding to fears for the future. Have the heart respond from the moment. And then we let the chips fall where they may. And then we see the truth of change. And we live in an intricate, extraordinary, ephemeral world, transparent and transitory. It's like weather, it's rainbow, it's just an echo, it's, a grain of sand, it's a dewdrop, it's a flash of lightning. It's a world of great, great loss and great, great possibilities, and everything in between, and never separate from life's openness. So change in this sense really is also just impermanence in the Buddhist language. So I believe what Sharon is really talking about is impermanence. We see the truth of impermanence. Nothing stays forever and nothing is real. You know, the experience can seem real. And I have to say, in terms of how I see it, the experience is both real and both not real. So we are able to experience for experience sake, and that is truth. That is at the edge of the expansion of our consciousness. But is it truth? Capital T truth. Is it real? As in it'll never change? No, it's not. It's impermanent. They're just reflections. They're just images, illusions projected on a screen. What remains is the experience and the evolution of experience, the evolution of expanding to greater and greater consciousness. So basically, we see the truth of impermanence as we open up to that sense of spaciousness. And when we see that things are impermanent, we're more able to be a little more free in what we do, what we say, and not so concerned about keeping up appearances. Even though I would be lying if I say that I don't care about appearances. Like, I'm not going to just roll out of bed without, putting my this is tinted sunscreen on, and then put on good, do my hair up and put my clothes on, or outdoor clothes. I'm going to do that before I appear, before I do the recording or come into office. Of course, there's still certain things where I absolutely care, but beyond a certain level, to me, it's, I don't want to say there's no meaning, but on a certain level, we start to recognize that this body really is just transitory, and to not take it personally and to not be so identified with it that we start to fixate, that I start to fixate. Okay, so then we see we can break the molds. When the mind is dense with conditioning, you keep adding to that density. And when you start pulling back all those layers, you get a natural emergence of creativity. And this is a quote from young Pueblo poet. So being open, allowing ourselves to open up, allows for a natural emergence of creativity. So I love how Sharon put it, creating isn't the same as replicating. So the way that maybe it's neurobiology, maybe it's just society's background noise that makes us want to stay in a certain set of values, want to stick with something fixed, wants us to hold on to youth, hold on to money, hold on to status, hold on to ABC, XYZ, we're just mainstream values. That's what we're taught to do, to hold on to what you have for as long as possible, as much as possible. And that brings us to a state of contraction. And so I think what Sharon's talking about is not only breaking the molds, but to sort of, for me, the wording would be to surrender to that state of pupation. We're releasing the mold. It's not breaking the mold. We're sort of releasing that mold of believing ourselves to be just this caterpillar. This is who I am, and I'm going to hold on to it for as long as possible, to just release the rigidity of the forms, to go to a state of complete openness and to see what emerges out of that goo of pupation. And from what I have experienced so far, with each death that I die in terms of identity, with each death that I die, and as each new identity that emerges out of me, I see myself doing the same thing of wanting to grasp onto that identity, hold on to it for as long as I can, and not want to recede, to be reborn into a new caterpillar and to go back into pupation, blah, 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 and go through that process again. I see myself wanting to hold on. Wanting to hold on to a certain identity. And there's a lot of pain in holding on. So what this is inspiring me to do is, when an identity is starting to form, relax again, to surrender again into non-permanence, into the truth of change, so that a new cycle can happen again, and to receive and accept the new cycle. Because I used to feel always so disappointed when I've just gotten to a certain height, either in my career or in other personal matters or in some sort of personal milestone. I'm just as I'm just getting used to that certain identity, it gets taken away from me. And it's been happening over and over and over again. Just as I was getting used to being X, just as I was getting used to doing Y, just as I was getting the hang of I don't know, a certain routine Z, all of that gets taken away from me and I start anew. And that's life, isn't it? So what Sharon is teaching me is to allow it, to accept it, because creativity comes from it and the deliciousness of life comes from it. And you never know who you're going to reemerge as out of the chrysalis. So she's really taught me to accept being the goo, when I'm still in that pupation period, to accept not being able to just easily put a label on myself, to accept that. And that just gives me so much freedom, instead of binding me to this idea that, oh, I'm a failure because I wasn't able to hold on to this identity, or wasn't able to achieve that, to fulfill my own expectations, blah, blah, blah. I'm able to sit back and to allow what needs to emerge, to sit back and allow the creativity, the life force to come through, and to also watch with curiosity. I think that's a big thing, to be able to watch myself with curiosity. Oh, I wonder what Elon's gonna do next. I think I would be as surprised as anybody what I'm going to do next, but I am now more open to it. And it really makes for a much more relaxed position to be in life. versus grasping, craving, or aversion or delusion. So we can break the mold and we can surrender to the pupation, surrender to the processes of change and transformation. Okay, finally, aspiration. So aspiration is a raw vision of meaning in one's life. It's a North Star by which to navigate, a guide to returning when you felt lost. So this is a direct quote from Sharon's, from Real Life, the book. My own aspiration is to live in touch with goodness. I aspire to be a force of goodness, to weave a story of life not made of fear but love. I aspire to truly walk my talk in the matter of love, a quality so easy to speak about or extol, but so often hard to make real. So for Sharon, her aspiration is to live in touch with goodness. And we're not talking about like aspiring to be a certain professional or aspiring to become a certain label or having a certain status. You know, we're not talking about sort of the mundane aspirations. We're more talking about a quality, a vision for yourself that you can gradually align to more and more and approximate more and more. But chances are these aspirations are so high that it's going to be really, really hard to attain, especially in a world of dichotomy. But that's the level that we're talking about. So aspiration gives us sense of meaning, something that we can believe in no matter what happens to us, remains a navigational force to pull the disparate pieces of our lives together into a whole. Like kindness, it can be the thread that twines through our successes, disappointments, delights, difficulties, making our lives seamless. So we can be having all sorts of challenges and having all sorts of successes in our lives. And the central aspirational quality and our working towards it and our practicing towards it can be the common thread that weaves through all of those undulations of life, all of those experiences of life. And I have to say, you know, Sharon described it as this being able to make our life seamless. My experience, gosh, I'm still so full of praise myself. I'm not experiencing, you know, a perfect seamlessness, but I'm experiencing wholeness, being able to see myself as whole, no matter how many loose ends I still have open, no matter how I'm able to weave through some things and not able to weave through others. At least I'm developing that self-compassion to be able to see myself as whole. So the wording is a little bit different from Sharon, but I think the idea is the same, that we have this central higher aspiration in terms of the quality that we want to live, the quality that we want to cultivate, that allows us practice opportunities through the experiences of life. Okay, so this is my personal aspiration, North Star, is authenticity. And I actually came up with another one this morning as I was taking a shower. It's actually, in addition to authenticity, it's really compassion and self-compassion. So authenticity can be a bit broad. Like, I don't mean authenticity as in, you know, just putting myself on the table, bam, take it or leave it, this is me, whatever. No, it's authenticity in terms of being able to offer compassion to others and offer compassion to myself, self-compassion to myself, and also being able to receive compassion from others and being able to, again, receive self-compassion for myself. So authenticity, further defined, is being able to embody compassion and self-compassion in an authentic way. And of course, it's a tall order. It takes balance between vulnerability and boundary setting when it comes to compassion. There is boundary setting as well. And of course, I don't think I'll ever get it right. But again, this is the North Star. This is the quality with which I wish to lead my life. I wish to have as a central practice focus as I go through the ups and downs and challenges and triumphs of life. So one of my practice edges, emotional authenticity. Just if we're talking only about authenticity, is the challenge is being first of all aware of my own emotions, and then from that awareness being able to express from authenticity. So the conditioning that I received placed ultimate value on productivity and efficiency as a measure of worthiness. So I have to say this could be common in the modern society as well. You may resonate with this. So I was rewarded by the system for denying emotions in favor of efficiency. I mean, that does sound familiar anywhere we go, but in any modernized society. So I later realized that this habit was draining my life force and creativity, and it blocks me from the heart, from my truth. And it was starting to make whatever that I was doing meaningless and sort of tasteless. So I was becoming numb. That remains my practice edge. So I'm right now on the level of being able to do body awareness, emotional awareness without judgment, accepting the emotions, accepting where the body is, where my emotions are without judgment, and be able to bring a level of acceptance to it. And to allow that to flow through my expressions. And that is a part of my North Star for self-compassion and practicing this level of authenticity, emotional authenticity. I'm also practicing self-compassion because this leads me to personal freedom, emotional freedom. This leads me to freedom of expression overall, and it allows me spaciousness, allows me openness, which means I would have more resilience to deal with the challenges of life. So essentially, it's embracing all emotions as worthy and valuable as my personal path to wholeness. So just an example, that is my North Star. Authenticity / compassion / self-compassion. Okay, so I think this is the last slide, hopefully. What I didn't cover, and it's worth reading the book for, is Sharon's personal anecdotes They are generously sprinkled throughout the book. I highly recommend getting the book, buying the book. They're in public libraries everywhere. It is an amazing book, so amazing that the paperback version is coming out, I believe, April 2024. Not quite yet, but you can pre-order on Amazon. It is such a dainty book and a great resource to have in your little library. There's a treasure trove of stories, quotes, interviews with her friends, peers, and teachers, and she's a master of demonstrating her points in dynamic ways. So it's not a dry and monotonous read. It ebbs and flows, and it gives you real life examples from Sharon and amazing quotes from spiritual teachers, from her peers, from people that she's interviewed. So it's a dynamic read. You won't be bored. It's not one of those more scientific nonfiction. It really is very anecdotal. So that means it's more based on storytelling to make a point. So it's livelier. And the entire book is a great reminder that you're not alone. So for everyone, it's a zigzagging, we mentioned zigzagging, chaotic, messy journey of discovery through life. It's not a fixed destination to perfection. So it's a great book to just flip open and find inspiration and hope whenever that you need it. So again, her happiness, let me go back. This is the last, yes, this is the last slide. So let me go back to the first slide, book summary. So her happiness, real happiness meditation challenge starts on February 1st, a couple of days. And it's a 28-day program. Please register by the 31st, which is coming up really, really soon. It's a sliding scale fee structure, and you can find the link to sign up on her website, SharonSalzberg.com. So I know that was a long presentation. I hope that was helpful to you, no matter where you are on your happiness or real life journey. I hope you just much openness and freedom, and more openness and freedom wherever you are. So I'm going to stop the share right here. Again, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Namaste.